Orthopedic surgeon and sports medicine specialist, Dr. Kristen Herbst, is a lifelong athlete and runner. She works with high school and college athletic teams, as well as professional sporting organizations to provide medical coverage at events and tournaments. She treats a variety of athletes, from young and high-level competitors to weekend warriors. Her passion is working to get patients back to their pre-injury level of activity. Please help me welcome from Lourdes Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, Dr. Kristen Herbst. Hi, Kristen.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. It's great to be here.
You know, I'm thinking about all of these weekend warriors and people who are athletes, and how often do they get injured?
Well, injury rates vary drastically. Weekend warriors tend to experience some of the acute sprains and strains because sometimes they're not as flexible, or they don't have the normal everyday activity that your normal competitive athletes have. Mm-hmm. So they tend to get a little bit more different injuries than specifically your competitive athletes.
And what kind of injuries are most prevalent?
So there are acute sprains and strains in that population, whereas your competitive athletes and endurance athletes will get your overuse injuries or acute tears from sudden explosive motions. Mm-hmm. So it varies according to what subset you're in.
And when you say explosive motions, can you give me an idea of what that means?
So your cutting and jumping activities and your soccer, basketball, volleyball athletes are actually going to predispose you to different injuries than your runners and your cyclists and whatnot.
Okay, I see. Now, think about parents, and I often think about parents who are signing their kids up for different activities. There's ballet, and there's soccer, and there's different types of physical activities. What kind of things should they be thinking about as they're doing that?
Well, first of all, I would encourage parents to sign their kids up for multiple activities. Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of studies recently that show that sports subspecialization at a young age is actually not the right direction to move in, because there's a higher risk of injury down the road if you're just performing one specific sporting activity. So I would encourage multiple sports. Additionally, core strength is really important no matter what sport you participate in. Mm-hmm. So that's important to incorporate that. And lastly, as female athletes go in from their pre-adolescent to adolescent years, mm-hmm. they have some neuromuscular control issues. So that predisposes them to ACL injuries. Okay. And there are specific prevention programs that coaches and parents can incorporate into their athletes' training schedule to help with that.
Like, for example?
So there are specific 20-minute warm-up programs that go through plyometrics, strength, stretching activities that have been proven to decrease the risk of ACL injuries in females.
Oh, that's great. Mm-hmm. That's great. And are trainers and coaches aware of these kinds of activities?
So the big push right now is to try to get those incorporated more commonly into practices. The health and allied health professions are on board, and we need to kind of get the coaches on board too. They don't want to waste practice time, but at the same time it's vital, because if one of their athletes get injured, they could be out for the entire season, sometimes even 2 seasons.
Now, say for instance somebody does get injured. I know that there's a physical recuperation that has to be considered. What about that emotional recuperation? You know, someone who's used to being active who's not able to do it. What happens to that athlete?
Yeah, that's a big component that we don't often think of, but it needs to be addressed, because there's a void left in this person's schedule, whether it's their daily activity that all of a sudden they don't have to train, they have this, but also there's some self-esteem issues when they're not, participating at their normal level. They start to, question whether they're going to get back and things like that. And we really need to encourage them to do some other things in the meantime. If someone's a runner that is all of a sudden sidelined, yoga could be a good way to get them, strong, flexible, but also, ease their mind and take some of the stress out of their life, which is usually a lot of people, their outlet is athletic activity.
And how do you, as the physician, help to support that injured athlete?
I really try to give them those options and say, you can't necessarily do your running, but maybe you can do, yoga instead. Maybe you can do swimming. Like, it varies depending on the specific injury, but I try to give them those options and help them stay involved.
And I'm sure the options kind of reassure them, because they're coming from a professional and you have some pretty good insight about what's going to help them to recover in the process.
Yeah, I try to give them the big picture, so that helps.
Now, Dr. Herbst is going to actually be returning in the next segment, and we're going to continue to address some unanswered questions about fitness, like what is female athlete triad syndrome? Stay tuned for more Embrace Life with Renai.